My name's Gypsy, and welcome back to this episode of Tragic Turns, a series where we discuss unfortunate and sometimes mysterious situations that impact our society in a negative way. Although we don't wish these events on anyone, they do happen, and we want to raise awareness about these things so that we can prevent future tragedies, or at least learn how to better cope with them. There's always something that we can learn from sharing these tales. Traveling is often seen as a way to expand horizons, experience new cultures, and create lasting memories. However, for some, a simple getaway can turn into an unimaginable tragedy. Today we're going to reflect on the lives of three individuals: Jordan Marshall, Kandace Florence, and Courtez Hall. Friends who tragically and ironically lost their lives while visiting Mexico City for the Day of the Dead celebrations, or better known by their locals as Dia de los Muertos. Their story, while heartbreaking, highlights the importance of travel safety and serves as a reminder for us of the unexpected risks that can come with staying in unfamiliar accommodations. Let's first take a moment to get to know these three individuals whose lives were cut short far too soon. Jordan Marshall, age 28, was a high school teacher from New Orleans, but he was more than just a teacher. He was a free spirit, an adventurer, and a passionate educator. Born and raised in Virginia Beach, Jordan went on to earn a master's degree in social studies and worked as a high school English teacher at Rosenwald Collegiate High School, located in New Orleans. He was dedicated to nurturing the intellectual curiosity of his students, and his family fondly remembers him for his love of writing and storytelling. His mother, Jennifer Marshall, is a librarian, and she recalls how Jordan always had a creative streak, making films and even writing and directing a church Christmas production. Both his mother and father, Larry Marshall, who's a truck driver, were his biggest supporters when it came to chasing after his endeavors. Jordan also had a love for travel and went beyond the ordinary. He visited Croatia, Iceland, Morocco, and Italy, often accompanied by his best friend, Candace. A few months before his death, he had even started his own online travel consultancy, helping others fulfill their travel dreams. His passion was traveling and exploring new cultures, something I think a lot of us can relate to. So Jordan Marshall was originally from Virginia Beach in the state of Virginia. He grew up there, he attended school there, and this was where he met his childhood friend Kandace Florence at Princess Anne Middle School. After high school, Jordan moved away to Washington, D.C., which is not too far away from Virginia, and later he ended up in Louisiana, in a little town just outside of New Orleans, to take a job teaching at Rosenwald Collegiate High School. Jordan's sister, Jasmine, describes him as somebody who always followed his own path. "You can't hold Jordan down," she says. He was somebody who loved adventure and was always looking to explore his world, a characteristic that was central to who he was and played a huge role in how this whole thing happened. It's pretty evident from what information is available that Jordan and his family were incredibly close. Kandace Florence, his friend, was a 28-year-old who was one of 4 children in her family. Her parents are Frida and Frank Florence, who live in Virginia Beach of Virginia State, and of course this is where Candace grew up. As for their occupations, Frida Florence, Candace's mom, was described to be a nurse. Unfortunately, there's not much detailed information about Frank Florence, Candace's father, in the public reports that surround this tragedy, but what we do know is that Kandace Florence was in a relationship with her boyfriend, Vincent Day, and according to reports, they had a very close and supportive relationship. Vincent was the one who received a concerning message from Candace shortly before her death, and we're gonna get more into how his actions led to the discovery of the tragic events that unfolded. And let's just say the bond that they shared was clearly evident, as his worry for her and his efforts to check on her reflect the closeness that they had in their relationship. 28-year-old Candace was known for her vibrant personality and her love of life. She was somebody who really lived in the moment, and her infectious personality drew people to her. Her mom remembers her as someone who always brought joy and laughter into any room. Candace was passionate about the arts and travel, and it was this shared love of exploring the world that brought her closer to Jordan. They were often travel companions, and Candace was always eager to see new places and immerse herself in different cultures, just like her homie Jordan. Now, Courtez Hall, the third in this group, was a 33-year-old school teacher, and he was definitely another key part of this close-knit trio. His mother is Ceola Hall, who expressed that he was a joyous child who loved his family and liked making everybody laugh. He was also very close to his sisters, whom he kept in touch with during his time while traveling. I couldn't track down the name of his dad or much information about him, so I'm not going to speculate on the kind of relationship they had or add anything extra on that. But something else I can tell you is that Jordan Marshall and Courtez Hall were in a romantic relationship with each other. I couldn't find information on how they met each other or how long they were together, but it is known that they were together for at least a year prior to all of this happening. Jordan's family, particularly his sister Jasmine, has shared that Cortez was very much a part of their family and Jordan's life in general. He was attending family events like weddings, and she even recalled a special moment from a family gathering in August when Jordan, Cortez, and the rest of the family dressed alike and took a photo together. And sadly, that was the last photo that they would have together. It seems like Jordan and Cortez shared a pretty strong bond. Cortez was part of the group that traveled with Jordan and his friend Kandace Florence to Mexico City for the Day of the Dead celebration. So that should give you some idea on how close they were and how serious their relationship was. Originally from New Orleans, Cortez wasn't just a partner to Jordan, but he was also a dedicated and caring educator. He was remembered by those close to him as somebody with a kind heart and a nurturing spirit, always striving to make a positive impact on the lives of his students. Like Jordan, Cortez also held a strong passion for education, and he was proud of the work that he was doing. His family and friends described him as compassionate, grounded, and loyal. Now, Jordan had already been to Mexico City just a few weeks prior to this weekend getaway, but this time the trio arrived in Mexico around late October of 2022, just in time for the Day of the Dead or Dia de los Muertos celebrations. The group had planned the trip to experience the vibrant cultural festival that takes place annually at the end of October and the beginning of November. They were all staying in an Airbnb rental in La Rosita neighborhood of Mexico City, a residential area offering a view of the city. Their trip was intended to be a joyful celebration of the Day of the Dead. The official dates of Dia de los Muertos are November 1st and November 2nd. November 1st is Dia de los Angelitos, which means Day of the Little Angels, dedicated to kids who have passed away. And November 2nd is Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, focused on honoring the deceased adults. These dates coincide with the Catholic holidays of All Saints' Day, which is November 1st, and All Souls' Day, November 2nd. But Dia de los Muertos incorporates indigenous traditions and beliefs about death and the afterlife, making it a unique celebration in Mexican culture. Dia de los Muertos is not strictly a religious holiday, but it does have religious elements, particularly rooted in Catholicism and indigenous Mexican beliefs. The holiday blends Catholic traditions with pre-Columbian indigenous practices, particularly from the Aztec culture, which revered ancestors and believed that death was a continuation of life. The Catholic influence comes from the observance of All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day, which are celebrated by many Christians around the world. However, Dia de los Muertos is more of a cultural and family-oriented celebration than a purely religious observation. It focuses on remembering and honoring the deceased with personal offerings, altars or ofrendas, music, food, and vibrant decorations. Families might create these altars inside their homes or even at cemeteries, placing photographs, favorite foods, marigold flowers, candles, and sometimes skull-shaped candies and decorations, all meant to welcome the spirits of the deceased back for a visit. Although this holiday does have a lot of undertones of religion because it's associated with Catholic observances, a lot of people who celebrate this do it in a non-religious way, simply as a cultural tradition of honoring their ancestors and their loved ones that have passed away. It's a joyful occasion rather than a mournful one, emphasizing the cycle of life and the belief that death is not an end, but a part of an ongoing journey. Okay, so the three homies are in Mexico, just chilling, getting ready to party, and it's the afternoon of October 30th now when they start running into some hiccups. Kandace Florence called her boyfriend and told him that she wasn't feeling so good. She reported symptoms of vomiting, dizziness, and weakness, like just fatigue. Her boyfriend later reached out to Jordan's sister Jasmine when he was unable to contact Candace later on in the day, trying to follow up with her. Concerned, he even called the Airbnb requesting for them to do a welfare check on Candace and her group.
She was able to contact her boyfriend to let him know that that she couldn't feel her legs. Her legs were numb. She couldn't move her legs, she said, and she, kept throwing up.
Later on that same day, the three of them were found in the apartment unresponsive. Upon arrival, security guards at the complex noticed an intense gas smell coming from the apartment, leading investigators to suspect carbon monoxide poisoning. This suspicion was later confirmed when blood tests showed the presence of carbon monoxide in their systems. A malfunctioning gas boiler in the apartment was identified as the source of the leak, releasing this deadly gas without any odor or color to alert victims. It's believed that one of the victims was found in the bathroom, suggesting they may have been attempting to shower when the gas leak occurred. When they turned on the hot water, it's possible that this triggered the boiler to activate, and that's how the gas leakage was caused. The combination of the gas leak and the lack of proper ventilation in the apartment proved to be fatal for the trio. Unfortunately, by the time they were found, it was just already too late. Now, CO poisoning can cause a wider range of symptoms, and they often resemble those of common illnesses, which can make it difficult to identify without proper testing. So like when she called her boyfriend and was like, oh, I'm feeling like this, I'm feeling like that, those symptoms might not be alarming out of context if you don't think, oh, well, this could be carbon monoxide symptoms, because vomiting and feeling weak, maybe she had food poisoning, maybe she was coming down with a cold, she could be just having like an allergic reaction to the food that she ate there, who knows. She could have just been tired from traveling. So it's not alarming to me that her boyfriend didn't act right away when he heard her talking about these symptoms. And we don't know at this stage if any of the other members were complaining about symptoms as well, or if it was just Candace. But let me tell you some of the most common symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning, and as you listen, try to decide if you think that these would have raised bells for you if you had heard your loved one complaining about feeling like this while they were traveling. Headache, one of the most common early symptoms, often described as a dull headache. Dizziness, nausea and vomiting, shortness of breath, fatigue and weakness, a general sense of tiredness or weakness, often leading to difficulty staying awake or alert. That's kind of scary. Confusion or disorientation, difficulty thinking clearly or concentrating, and a sense of mental fog. I mean, damn, I feel like that every day. Oh my gosh. There's also chest pain, which can occur in more severe cases, especially for people who have heart conditions, loss of consciousness or fainting, blurry vision. I have blurry vision all the time. My eyesight sucks. Well, okay, hold on. So that would be like, you can see, but now you can't see. That's different. Okay, I'm slow. And then there's also tinnitus. In some cases, individuals might experience ringing or buzzing sounds in their ears. What? Symptoms tend to worsen with continued exposure to carbon monoxide, of course, as the gas interferes with the body's ability to carry oxygen. In severe cases, prolonged exposure can lead to unconsciousness, brain damage, and even death, as we see in this story. Since carbon monoxide is colorless, odorless, and tasteless, it's particularly dangerous because people might not realize that they're being poisoned until the symptoms are just too severe. Early detection and immediate medical help are crucial to prevent serious harm or even death. Now, the Airbnb rental, despite its beautiful view of the city, had failed to meet safety standards regarding the presence of carbon monoxide detectors. The lack of such safety measures in vacation rentals is one of the main reasons why this tragedy occurred. The victims' families have since called for stricter regulations regarding safety checks in rental properties, emphasizing how important it is to ensure that gas-powered appliances are maintained well and that all the Airbnb properties are equipped with working carbon monoxide detectors. The deaths of Kandace Florence, Jordan Marshall, and Courtez Hall in Mexico City were preventable, and there are several key measures that could have potentially saved their lives. Here's a breakdown of how these tragic deaths could have totally been avoided. Proper ventilation and maintenance of the gas boiler. The cause of death for all three was carbon monoxide poisoning, which occurred due to a malfunctioning gas boiler in the Airbnb rental. A gas boiler that is not properly maintained can leak carbon monoxide. It was crucial to perform regular maintenance of the gas boiler and appliances that use gas, ensuring that they are properly ventilated and functioning right. Proper installation of carbon monoxide detectors in homes and rental properties would alert the guests to any dangerous levels of carbon monoxide in the air. And even a small change, like ensuring that the property is well ventilated, open some windows, especially when using gas-powered appliances, can reduce the buildup of CO. Awareness of carbon monoxide risks. Now, at the time of their deaths, Kandace Florence reportedly started to feel unwell with symptoms like dizziness, vomiting, weakness, and these are very classic symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning. In a location with a gas boiler, even mild symptoms like this should have prompted this group to investigate their surroundings, especially given the absence of a CO detector. Awareness of the symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning can really save lives. If the group had recognized these signs earlier, they might have been able to leave the apartment and seek fresh air before the situation got critical. Like, literally, all they had to do was leave the apartment and walk outside. They were a literal doorway between life and death. If they had used the carbon monoxide detector or known to avoid staying in a location with a gas-powered boiler without a detector present, they could have avoided entering a dangerous environment. This is a little bit tricky though, because who on earth is traveling out of the country with carbon monoxide monitors? Hello. But since researching this case, I was shocked to find out that very seasoned international travelers do actually carry their own CO monitors with them, and they're battery operated. They work even if you don't mount them to the walls or anything like that. So I guess it's worth it, because you just never know, as these poor souls found out. Emergency response and communication. The group was not able to reach emergency services in time. Candace had been able to contact her boyfriend, reporting feeling ill, but after that call, the group was unreachable. By the time the welfare check was requested, it was just too late. If the group had realized they were in danger from carbon monoxide and left the apartment as soon as Candace reported the symptoms, of course they would have survived. Making sure you have the ability to communicate when you're in an emergency situation is so important, particularly in remote areas or places that might have poor cell service. Although their communication attempts were made, the lack of immediate access to emergency services likely contributed to the delay in them getting help. And of course, there's better Airbnb standards. The Airbnb property where the trio stayed lacked basic safety features, such as a carbon monoxide detector, which is now being discussed in light of this tragedy. While Airbnb provides guidelines for hosts to ensure the safety of their guests, these tragedies highlight the need for stricter enforcement of safety standards across all rental properties, particularly in areas where gas appliances are being used. Preventative measures would include mandatory carbon monoxide detectors in all Airbnb properties, stricter safety regulations, and checks for vacation rentals to ensure that every property meets the basic safety standards. Currently, there is no nationwide law in Mexico that requires carbon monoxide detectors in residences or rental properties. So does Mexico need to have better regulations in place to enforce these places that are being accessed by the public to have these safety measures in place? I don't know. Do we have laws like that here in America? Every place that I rent, the landlords always make a big deal about acknowledging that there are fire alarms and CO monitors throughout the house. As a tenant, we're not allowed to remove them or deactivate them. So is that because there's a law that says that we have to do that, or is it like every individual landlord decides if they want to do that? I'm not really sure, but let me know in the comments if you are. If you find yourself traveling to Mexico or really anywhere, especially if you're staying in like a rental that has gas appliances there, it is highly advisable to take personal precautions like checking for carbon monoxide detectors and protecting yourself whatever way that you can. Open the windows, let the place air out, go buy yourself a carbon monoxide detector if you can, and try to travel with one, because who knew that this was even something that, like, this is so scary. There's no warning. Who knows how long it takes for these symptoms to overtake you and you just die. Carbon monoxide poisoning is an invisible and often undetectable risk, but it is preventable with the proper precautions. It's important to have an emergency plan when you're traveling, especially when you're staying somewhere very unfamiliar. You should always know how to contact the local emergency services. Make sure that your accommodations are safe, especially when you go to a foreign country. So now the families are suing the Airbnb company for wrongful deaths. The families argue that Airbnb and the hosts of the property were negligent in several ways. Failure to provide safety equipment. The families claim that the property was not equipped with essential safety devices, specifically carbon monoxide detectors. These devices are critical, especially in properties with gas-powered appliances like boilers, stoves, heaters. Lack of proper oversight and inspections. The families also argue that Airbnb didn't perform adequate safety checks on the property or enforce basic safety standards including making sure the property had functioning carbon monoxide detectors, failure to warn or disclose risks. The lawsuit also states that the travelers were not adequately warned about potential gas hazards in this rental. They argue that Airbnb, as the platform facilitating the booking of the place, had a responsibility to make sure that these properties were safe before listing it. I don't know what to make of that. I mean, Airbnb can't check every single place. How are they supposed to know? Just for an example, let's say you sell like some chips to someone on eBay. They get the chips and they open it up and it's straight up moldy up in there. Can they sue eBay and say it was your responsibility to make sure this person didn't sell me something that was expired or moldy? How do you even enforce it? It's like, it's not a brick and mortar place where people like physically come to get approved to be eBay sellers. Everything is done online. So how much responsibility does eBay have? And that's kind of how I look at Airbnb. You're like an internet booking company for these properties that ain't nobody going and checking in person to qualify. I don't know. Like when I was moving here to Oklahoma, we had to stay at an Airbnb and it was like a super good deal. I almost couldn't believe mine eyes, but I was so like shaking before I booked it because I was so nerve-wracked that it was a scam. And I'm like, who am I holding accountable if this booking goes sideways and it turns out that this person was just scamming me because I had to pay for it up front, you know? How do you enforce something like that? And how am I supposed to know if the place really is what it looks like in the pictures? I could get there and there could be like a disgusting stench. You can't smell through pictures. Is Airbnb at fault now if this place that I went to had like nasty garbage just rotting away inside the apartment and I'm just stuck here? I don't know. This is like a little bit tricky, you know? What y'all think? Failure to act on distress signals. Kandace Florence reportedly called her boyfriend and said she was feeling ill before the group was found dead. And despite attempts to reach out for help, the group wasn't rescued in time, allegedly due to the failure of the platform to ensure that safety protocols were in place. That's another thing. Like, is Airbnb responsible for making sure that there's proper cell phone service at a location or that it's near emergency services in case somebody needs help? Like, how responsible really are they? Or is it my job as the consumer to do enough research to where I'm familiar with the different safety services and emergency services that might be available in that area? I don't know. It's kind of tough. Jennifer Marshall, Jordan Marshall's mom, stated that they're fighting for accountability so that future guests can stay in Airbnb properties without fear of facing similar dangers. She emphasized that the tragic deaths could have been prevented with basic safety measures in place, like carbon monoxide detectors. The families of the victims have also emphasized the emotional toll that this incident has taken on them, not only due to the loss of their loved ones, but also because of the lack of responsibility and transparency from Airbnb regarding this incident. While the legal proceedings are still ongoing, the families have taken steps to hold the company accountable, and the lawsuit likely seeks financial compensation for their emotional distress, wrongful deaths, and pain and suffering. As of right now, Airbnb has expressed regret over the tragedy, with a spokesperson saying, "This is a terrible tragedy and our thoughts are with the families and loved ones as they face this heavy loss." They've committed to cooperating with the investigation, although the families are pressing for more than just expressions of sympathy. They're demanding concrete changes to safety protocols. The lawsuits against Airbnb by the families of the victims aim to hold the platform accountable for its failure to ensure the safety of its property, specifically the lack of a carbon monoxide detector, which is like a very simple thing that they can do. The outcome of this case could have significant implications for how vacation rental companies address safety standards moving forward, and it might lead to stricter regulations in the industry to prevent further tragedies related to something like carbon monoxide poisoning. So what steps do you think should be taken by rental platforms like Airbnb to ensure the safety of the travelers, especially regarding CO and other hidden dangers? And what actions can be taken to raise awareness about safety regulations for vacation rentals and to prevent further tragedies like this from happening? I want you to leave your opinions in the comment section. I feel like covering stories like this is my way of doing my part because I honestly had no idea that this could even happen. And of course, you know, when you're at home and you've got your fire alarms beeping all the time because the battery is going low, it's very easy to just take the thing apart instead of changing the battery. And you don't really think anything about that. The same with the CO detectors. Like, it's just not something people really think about day to day, even at home. So how much less are you thinking about this when you're off traveling in a place where it's just temporary accommodations? You're not going to be there that long. I tell you what, these tragic deaths of Jordan Marshall, Kandace Florence, and Courtez Hall remind us all that safety should never be taken for granted, no matter where we are or what we're doing. Thank you for listening to this case about these precious lives that were lost. If you're inclined to say a little prayer or send some positive vibes to their families, the pain is always a little bit deeper when you learn that the victims in these cases were really good people and they were dearly respected and loved by the people in their community, as all three of these folks were. And it just stings knowing how young they were. They had their whole entire futures in front of them, and they were just trying to go have some fun and spend time together. That's heartbreaking. I'll see you guys again in another episode of Tragic Turns. Thank you so much to the people who are newly subscribing here. My channel is very new. I know it doesn't seem like it because my oldest video is from like a year ago, but I took a huge break in between and I'm just starting to get back into YouTubing, not only here, but on my other channels as well. So this is absolutely one of my passions. I love talking about this stuff, and I can't keep like tormenting the people in my real life talking about these dark stories, crime stories, and just like sad, depressing things because they're not really into that. So I was like, let me just do it online because the people who are into it like me will find their way over here. So that's what this is all about. I always want for us to be learning something from these situations because I'm the type of person, I would rather learn from your mistakes than mine. I don't need to go through that to learn what I need to learn to prevent this from happening to me. I don't need to go through it to feel your pain. You feel me? So that's just how I look at it. Thank you again for watching. My name is Gypsy Kim, and stay safe until the next one. Ciao.